Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm House Democratic Leader Sam Singh, and with me are State Representatives Brian Elder from Bay City, Representative LaTanya Garrett from the City of Detroit, and Representative Pam Ferris from Clio. We're here in Lansing in the middle of the summer because our work is not done. A couple weeks ago, the Republicans finished session by slashing people's wages and taking away people's health care. But we felt that we would need to continue to work throughout the summer, to work for working families. One of the things that we want to talk about today is that we in the state of Michigan for the last 23 years have been putting profit of pharmaceutical companies before Michigan families. It's time to repeal the failed drug immunity law that was passed in the 1990s. Michigan's drug immunity law is unique, and when I say unique, it means that we're last in the nation. We are the only state in the nation that has this law in effect. This was passed in 1995, and we were told that it was supposed to be for economic development. We were told it was supposed to bring jobs to the state of Michigan. Well, 23 years ago, and a lot's happened since then, but those jobs never emerged, those profits never helped our families, and we have actually hurt people who could have actually taken these companies and been able to get justice from them. When we take a look at a lot of the things that have happened throughout our state over those last 2 decades, when we take a look at what's happened over the last 7.5 years of this administration, once again, it's always been corporations before people. And for us to be able to do what's right for Michigan citizens, we felt that we had to be here during the summer to talk about this very important issue, along with the other bills that we've talked about in the past that deal with bringing down pharmaceutical prices. So here to talk a little bit more about our bill package today is Representative Brian Elder.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Leader Singh. I'm Brian Elder. I'm the state representative from the 96th District in Bay City. Michigan's drug immunity law has made it impossible for families to seek justice in the court system when a drug company makes a loved one sick or the product leads to death. The drug immunity laws say that pharmaceutical companies are to be held harmless so long as drugs have been approved by the Food and Drug Administration at the time of their introduction. And of course, FDA approval is important, we all know that, but there have been times when the FDA has approved a drug only to recall it later. Or worse, there have been times when it's been revealed that a drug company misled the FDA in order to get a drug to market. Simply having FDA approval does not guarantee that the drug maker did not act negligently or without malice. And when that happens, and when our people are hurt, something must be done. When it happens to your family, you should have the right to hold them accountable. And in fact, you should have the same freedom that people in every other state in this country have. We are the only state in the country that denies this freedom to its people, and it's time for that to stop. Since 1995, drug companies have had a get-out-of-court-free card in the state of Michigan. They know that they won't be held accountable when drugs that they make end up making people sicker instead of healthier, or worse, killing them. That's because 23 years ago, Republican State Senator Bill Schuette rigged the rules against working families so that corporations could increase their profits. That was a terrible idea when it happened, and it's a terrible idea today. In those past 23 years, an untold number of Michiganders have been prevented from getting the justice they deserved because of this misguided law. The most famous example is the Vioxx litigation, where Michigan victims were dismissed, even in lawsuits filed in other states. That's why House Democrats are taking the extra step of making our law retroactive. That means that all families who have been denied justice because of the failed drug immunity law would soon be able to have their day in court. And to discuss this bill a little bit more in depth, I'd like to welcome my friend and colleague, Representative Garrett.
Good morning. Thank you, Rep. Elder. I am Latanya Garrett, serving in House District 7, which is a portion of Northwest Detroit in the entire city of Highland Park. We know for far too long, Michigan families have been stripped of a critical tool to hold drug manufacturers accountable. As a result, these companies have been able to tilt the scales in their favor. This is America. After all, we're all supposed to have equal protection under the law. But families like mine that have had to struggle while our family members were ill, such as my daughter, are valued less under the current Michigan law than wealthy corporations. For example, let's look at companies like Purdue Pharma, the company that produces highly addictive drugs like OxyContin, rakes in over $3 billion annually just for this one drug. Yet our families and municipalities continue to shoulder the enormous financial burden the opioid crisis has placed on our various communities. Look at companies like Merck, the producer of the now called drug Vioxx, still saw profits in the billions from the manufacture and sale of their very own, what I would call, poison pill. Despite their failure to disclose the potential for Vioxx to cause heart attack and stroke, which it did, this is not equal. Drug companies aren't supposed to get special favors or handouts from the very people who were sent to protect Michigan families. That's why Democrats are also working to strengthen the consumer package and the Protection Act to give Michigan families the tools they need to hold billion-dollar corporations responsible. These are steps that have to be taken not just to hold companies accountable, but to bring a balance in Michigan. The drug immunity law is a shining example of how the deck has been stacked against our working families in our state and how government has created nothing but wealthy CEOs instead. Rather than making sure that families have access to the courts in order to pursue justice, the drug immunity law made sure that huge corporations and their wealthy CEOs never had to face families who lost their loved ones in the courts. That's just wrong. The good news is we can do something about it, and that is by getting rid of Michigan's drug immunity law. Here to say a little bit more is my colleague, Rep. Ferris.
Thank you, Rep. Garrett. I appreciate it. Good morning. I'm Pam Ferris, and I am from Genesee County. I represent the 48th District. And as we talked about today, Michigan's drug immunity laws have been around for more than 20 years. And while Democrats have been fighting to repeal it since 2005, something major changed in the last few years that made this fight even more important, the opioid crisis that we're dealing with now. All around the nation, cities, states, and counties are taking action against drug companies that make highly addictive opioids like OxyContin, and that they encouraged the doctors to prescribe it, and they overprescribe it. I apologize. They encouraged doctors to overprescribe it. Some individuals have also filed suit. Drug companies flooded our communities with these pills, often telling us that they were less likely to cause addiction when the truth was actually the opposite. We all know the result, and we're dealing with it every day. Hundreds of thousands of people have overdosed across the country in the past 2 decades. Families have been torn apart by the opioid epidemic. Children have lost their parents, and grandparents who never really expected to have to raise children all over again, have found themselves raising their grandchildren. Communities are contending with the opioid-related crisis crime that has sprouted up again. There is evidence that suggests that drug manufacturers misled the FDA about how extremely addictive these drugs are. But here in Michigan, the drug makers are held harmless, and we are the only state that holds them harmless, and that's wrong. Though many cities and counties have joined in these lawsuits, the Michigan drug immunity law makes it unclear if they will ever be able to hold the drug companies accountable. That means that while Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin stand to collect potentially millions of dollars that can go to helping people overcome their addictions or caring for children of addicts that are now in the foster care system, or addressing the opioid-related crime that has affected so many of our communities, Michigan families won't see any of that justice. Why? Because we have tied our own hands behind our backs with our own drug immunity law, a law that was supposed to act as an economic incentive, but it failed. A law that shields drug companies when they harm or even lead to the death of our loved ones. A law that now protects the manufacturers of opioid drugs that have devastated so many homes and communities. And enough is enough. We have hit enough. We have the power to end Michigan's drug immunity law and bring back justice to the people of Michigan and to our districts. And this isn't a radical idea. When we do this, we simply will be joining every other state in the nation that already holds drug companies to the same standards of accountability as any other kind of company. Let's join together and get this done.